Hey everyone, welcome to Sidetrack Adventures. This is Steve. Today we are in search of a pyramid, but we're not in Egypt. We are in Rocklin, California, and somewhere in this suburban neighborhood, we will find the Whitney Pyramid. We are currently about 30 minutes outside of Sacramento at Rocklin's Monument Park. And Monument Park is right in the middle of this nice suburban neighborhood. This whole area was once owned by a guy who only had 10 cents in his pocket when he arrived in California, became the richest guy in the county, and then had a pyramid built to help get reincarnated. You know, the American dream. What we're looking for today is not actually in this park, it's off in this wooded area somewhere. At age 17, Joel Parker Whitney came to California from Boston in 1852 with dreams of finding gold and getting rich. And I think we're going to head into the woods on this dirt path. There are no signs telling us how to get to where we want to go. So 1852 was 4 years into the gold rush, so he was a little late to the party, and there weren't many finding their fortunes by then, at least not in gold. Two of Whitney's brothers had traveled to California in 1848 and 1849 and already failed at gold mining, so they started a merchandising business. When Joel Parker arrived, his brothers tried to talk him out of looking for gold and joining their business, but he wasn't having it. He was going to find gold. He didn't, but he found a way to make his fortune. Whitney was handy with a gun, though, and he found success hunting game birds, which were fetching high prices at San Francisco restaurants. Eventually, he made enough to head back to Boston, where he began buying equipment he knew the miners in California needed, and started shipping it to San Francisco, where he could get high prices for it. At Whitney's suggestion, his family began buying land in California's Placer County. Whitney's father claimed over 20,000 acres, including where we're currently walking. While he was out here, Whitney fell in love with this area. To show how much he loved it, between 1852 and 1865, he made several trips back and forth between California and Boston by stagecoach, which was a rough journey back then that took over a month. He was right, though. It is a beautiful area. Whitney continued to increase his fortune with business ventures related to the mining industry. In 1865, he settled in Colorado and was involved in gold and silver mines there. In New Mexico, he helped build the Silver City, Deming, and Pacific Railroad. Then in the early 1870s, Whitney gained control of his father's ranch here and expanded it to 27,000 acres and built a mansion, the Oaks Mansion, not too far from where we are right now. He raised sheep, promoted the citrus industry, and even shipped the first batch of raisins from the state. His wealth also allowed him to travel the world, and he spent several months a year in Europe, where he was friends with the British royal family. Here in Rocklin, he had a series of 12 footbridges built, based off ones he came across in London. In 1867, Whitney was appointed to an official position at the Paris International Exposition, and it's been theorized that it was there, where new archaeological findings from Egypt were being displayed, that Whitney began to take an interest in pyramidology, or the belief that pyramids might hold special powers. Here's a little stream. This is a really peaceful area. You almost forget that you're completely surrounded by neighborhoods. There's a golf course in front of us. Occasionally you'll see golf carts driving by. And here we are, what we've been looking for. There's a plaque here that talks about the pyramid and has a few pictures of Joel Parker Whitney. And it is right over there in what is called the fort. There's another marker hidden on the other side of the plaque. It looks like this was somebody's Eagle Scout project. This rock wall that is called the fort predates the pyramid, but nobody's quite sure when or why it was built. It was already here by the mid 1880s. And now we're getting our first views of the Whitney Pyramid. It looks like there used to be a gate between these giant rocks at the entrance to the fort. I have to imagine that these two boulders were here naturally, and the rest of the wall was built to incorporate them into it. But they do make a pretty cool entrance. And you can see here that the rest of the wall is just stacked rocks. Joel Parker Whitney died from kidney disease in January 1913 and was entombed here. It's unknown when this was actually built or who built it. Photos of the fort area in the mid 1880s don't show it, but it was here in 1913, so at some point between the mid 1880s and 1913 it was built. I've seen conflicting information on how many people are entombed in this pyramid, but this is the final resting place of at least 17 people. Whitney's parents, who passed in the mid 1880s, are entombed here, but no one knows if this was already built or they were moved later. I believe the most recent interment was in the 1960s. So why build a pyramid? Whitney believed that pyramids held the power to bestow reincarnation. This pyramid is 15 feet tall and made out of granite. Apparently on the inside it's marble. This thing's over 100 years old, but I think all this moss covering it makes it look much older. The pyramid had been broken into decades ago, so this big iron door was installed. But I heard the family does open this up about once every 5 years. Looking around the entrance, you could see some holes where a gate or something used to be. There's some down here. What I find interesting is that there are no names or anything written on the outside of the pyramid. This area was once home to the Nisenan people, who actually made it until the early 1800s before having any contact with Europeans. Unfortunately, in the 1830s, fur trappers introduced malaria to the area, and a good portion of their population was wiped out. Whitney was said to have good relations with the Nisenan and was interested in their culture, but by 1900, they were completely gone from the area. But we could still find evidence they were here, right next to the pyramid. Right on the outside of the walls of the fort, there are quite a few morteros, or native grinding stones. The Nisenan would have used these rocks to grind acorns and other food, and over time these holes developed. They likely would have only been here seasonally, but you could tell by how many there are and how deep these are that they were probably using this place for centuries. And there are holes on nearly every stone. You have to wonder if these being here had any influence on why Whitney chose this spot for his pyramid. I mentioned the golf course earlier. Just to show how close we are right by the 11th hole of the Whitney Oaks golf course. While the Whitney family eventually sold off most of their thousands of acres here, they do still own this 1 acre that the pyramid sits on. So that's our look at the Whitney Pyramid. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing, and we'll see you next week.